Hello, full stack web developer, and welcome to Coding for All. Are you ready to dive into the world of full stack web development? Here at Coding for All, we are not just another channel. We are your ultimate destination for mastering full stack web development. And guess what? We do it all with practical applications and utilizing free resources. In our last video, we got to know how to create, open, and remove files and folders using command line. And the amazing thing was without using mouse even once. And guess what? We're just getting started. So buckle up and get ready to take your skills to the next level. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell on because you won't want to miss on the incredible content coming your way. So what you are waiting for? Let's dive into the world of coding together right here on Coding for All. Okay guys, so it's a serious question that you can see right in front of you. You have been following the video for so long, many videos along the channel, you have liked, shared, subscribed. But my question is that you should ask from your own self, who am I? After watching this, why are you watching this? What's the reason behind it? Who am I? I'm a full stack web developer. Good, that's what the channel asks you to become. But the question is, who is a full stack web developer? Who is so high in demand? Always, any high end company is always asking for a full stack web developer. But then the question is, who is a full stack web developer? A full stack web developer is the one who knows both of this, front end development as well as back end development. Up till now, we have been working on front end development, but now we will be moving on to the back end development. So the thing is that this time we will be diving into the back end web development, which is more of, you can say, technical stuff, and it is create an explanation. But don't worry, we'll pass this also with success and with joy. So this is how we can describe front end and back end. What do you think? Which one is front end, left or right? So now you can see the difference between the front end and back end. Notice the front end is where our user looks at. It's a beautiful mermaid. Everything the user can see is a part of front end. Its font, its color, its typography, its buttons, the forms, everything that the user can see or hear or interact with it directly is a part of front end of the website. Now, what about the snake? Well, because the back end is the part the user will never see and never interact with, sometimes it can get a little bit monster like, but it doesn't have to. And we are going to learn all the things that's going to make our front end as great as our back end, or the other way around. But essentially, back end is a part that the user never gets to interact with and never gets to touch or see. Now, what exactly is back end? So, first of all, we'll talk about a server. Server is just a computer, and a server, you can say computer or server for your understanding, for a live website should be on 24/7, so it can listen for incoming requests from browsers from all over the world. Traditionally, servers are made and optimized for this particular purpose, but at the end of the day, any computer that is connected to the network can act as a server. And in fact, we are going to be building our websites locally. We are going to be hosting it somewhere called as local host, which means we are going to be using our own computer as a server in order to serve up the websites that we create. And even though it's not on 24/7, or maybe you keep your computer 24/7, it doesn't matter because we only need it to be on and connected when we are testing it. The second aspect is application. An application is basically the logic that runs on the computer the server, and this logic determines how you want to respond to the request from the browser. Depending on what that request is, let's say a user clicked on a button and that request came to the server to the application. The application knows that particular button should return a particular HTML page. So then it sends that HTML page back to the browser and the user gets a look at a new web page. Sometimes an application can also respond with different things other than HTML, and that is status code, which you usually see as 404 error. That is when a request is not valid or the page is broken. So you can say either it is broken or there is some issue, so it shows oops or something like that, that I believe many of us are not happy with. And now the final aspect is database. And this is not a requirement of web application, but usually as your web app gets more complex and larger, then it's going to need to store user data. And that is what databases are for. So when we store the data into a hard drive, it's kind of like saving your Word document, right? If suddenly power went out, you didn't save your Word, then you'll probably lose it, sorry. And this happens exactly the same way on a server. If a computer lost power, you didn't have any sort of database, then all of that data will be completely wiped unless we have a way to persist the information. So database is a form of permanent storage for your web application. Now I know that I keep talking about this idea of web application, and the reason for that is because so far we have been building websites that only have a front end, that are essentially web pages. They are bits of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and this is why we have been able to use GitHub pages to serve these static web pages, because all we needed to do was to store these files somewhere, and when the user requests it by going to the particular URL, then the server, which in our case was GitHub pages, like we have hosted Tindog or CV, then returns these files back to the browser and gets rendered for the user to see. Nothing very complex there. But when we talk about web application or web app, then in this case it should be able to do something beyond just allowing users to view web pages. Let's think about a really simple application functionality, and you can say if they ask for login, that you can see on the right side. Let's say the user goes to a website or a web page, you can say, and enters their email and their password because they are returning to log into our website. Now these two pieces of information are passed to our server in a request. Because our server is on and is listening for a request, it's able to find application that knows how to handle the login. So maybe it will be like a login.js file. In this file, there will be some logic that knows how to log a user in, and that logic is usually pretty simple. We could look inside our database, look for a particular email and get hold of that password for that email, and then we can compare the password that's in the database for the user's email against password that they sent us the front end. And if those two pieces of data match, then we can send back via server a response in the form of, say, home page, right? So home.html maybe, and if for some reason it didn't match, then maybe our response would be send them back to the login page and get them to try again with the error code. If you think this whole flow of our web application, that things are a little bit more complex to just, you can say, understand or visualize, then let me take you to another analogy, and it will be really simple and easy for you to understand, I believe, and that is for the bakery. A really good analogy for this process of front end and back end. If we divide up our bakery into front end, which is the restaurant, or you can say the bakery where the waiter serves, and the kitchen, or the rest you can say, is the back end. Then we can start thinking about what happens when we order at a restaurant. Firstly, or a bakery. Firstly, you enter the bakery. Here you are, good looking, beautiful as always. You say to the waiter, "Hey, I want something." So you take a look at the menu, which essentially is full of functionality that this particular web app has. And you can also think of this as just all the different interactions on the website, buttons or forms. And you decide to click on a particular button, let's say anything. You can say pie or cake. So you click on this button on a website, or in this case of our bakery, you tell the waiter you ordered from the menu, and then what the waiter is going to do, he is going to transfer from the back end to the back end. From the front end to the back end. And this is what happens when your browser sends that request to your server. The service is effectively the same as the kitchen in the bakery. It's open 24/7. Not for always, but just imagine in this case. But in this case, it's listening for the request that coming from our waiter, from the front end, from the bakery, and in the server there are application which is basically our chef. And what our chefs are able to do is they have lots of recipes. They know exactly how to respond to different requests from the client. So let's say in this case the client wanted some pancakes or a cake. Well, the application or chef knows how to make a cake or a pancake. It has pancake or cake recipe. It checks the recipe. It sees, we need some data from our database. If we imagine the pantry as the database of the restaurant, then what the chef or the application is going to do is going to request those ingredients or those pieces of data to process it or work it with somehow, and then at the end it's going to send back a response to the front end. So in this case, we got some pancakes or even the simple cake that were made in the kitchen and sent in the front house of which is a bakery. And in our server, that could be some HTML, CSS, JavaScript files that got created or retrieved and sent over to the front end. If you wanted more food or a different item, then you can again ask the waiter to make another request to your server, and the cycle of response and request between the front end and back end is essentially how most web apps work. So next time when you are thinking about a full stack web app application work, you can think about the client who's a person at a bakery who is ordering some bakery item, and that request get relayed to the kitchen, which is the server side, and in the server there's an application which is similar to the kitchen that prepares the order and working with the data in the pantry of the kitchen. And once all of that logic is processed, the food, the actual thing that the user should see, is then sent back to the client side where the response is food on the actual plate. So this was all. I can guarantee that you surely would have learned and enjoyed in this video, where we got to know the backend web development, and even in the upcoming lessons we will be looking on the actual tools and technology that are used to build the backend of web applications. So like and share the video and subscribe to the channel so we may learn and grow together. Until then, good luck and bye, full stack web developer.